There are words that seem like harmless jokes, but they cut deeper than any knife. I used to think I was a lucky wife to have married Alex, a gentle man who always acted loving toward me in front of everyone. But I was wrong to believe he would always stand by me, no matter what happened. It all started on a June afternoon, when his family hosted an outdoor barbecue. And just one comment from his sister, Ashley, made me lose myself completely. Anyone who has ever felt alone in the middle of familiar faces would understand how I felt then. That day was a warm Sunday in the suburbs of Seattle. My husband's family, the Andersons, had a tradition of hosting a barbecue on the first weekend of every month. I, a girl from Portland, had moved here to live with my husband for almost 3 years, always trying to fit in with their lively and slightly noisy way of living. Alex, my husband, was 34, the second son in a family of 4 siblings. I was 29, working as a marketing assistant for a small company in the city. To be honest, in their eyes, I had never really been a true Anderson. They often looked at me as if I were a long-term guest rather than true family. Since getting married, I kept telling myself, as long as Alex loved me, I would eventually win over his family's affection. But it seemed my efforts were never enough. I wasn't as skilled in the kitchen as his mother, Patricia, who was over 60 but still handled every dish perfectly. Nor was I lively and quick-tongued like his 2 sisters, Ashley, 27, and Emma, 31, who always knew how to make jokes and draw everyone's attention. That day, everything seemed normal at first. My mother-in-law, Patricia, was busy flipping smoked ribs on the grill. My father-in-law, George, was sipping beer with a few neighborhood friends. Alex stood next to me, occasionally brushing my back as a reassuring gesture. I sat by the salad table, helping Emma arrange the grilled veggies on plates. Laughter filled the backyard. Country music played from a Bluetooth speaker by the beer table. The smell of grilled meat mixed with freshly cut grass made the summer air feel much nicer. I thought that afternoon would be warm and carefree. But then, everything changed with just one line from Ashley. She stood across from me, holding a can of soda, her shrill voice loud enough for everyone around to hear. I can still remember her disdainful look, the look that kept me awake for a whole week afterward. Ashley glanced at me and then burst out laughing. "Hey Alex, just kidding." But if she disappeared tomorrow, I bet no one would even notice. A few of the younger people nearby laughed out loud. I forced a crooked smile like a robot. My heart was pounding, the blood in my body felt drained. I didn't know where to look, at my husband's face or down at the salad plate in front of me to hide my shame. Alex nudged Ashley's shoulder, forcing a smile, and said quietly, "Come on, don't joke like that in front of everyone." But then he turned to me, his eyes showing no sign of protecting me. He didn't say a word to defend me, nor did he look at me for more than a second. I just sat there, hearing the coals crackle and the surrounding laughter and gossip, wishing I could really disappear, just like Ashley had said. I don't know how long I sat frozen like that. All I know is that when everyone started eating again, laughter kept echoing, but inside me everything was shattered. I had believed that if I was sincere enough, patient enough, everything would get better. But the moment Ashley threw that comment at me, I realized there were things I could never force, like acceptance from a family that always saw me as an outsider. And this was only the beginning. I tried to swallow the meat even though my mouth was dry. The plate in front of me was full, but I felt no hunger. Every laugh, every sideways glance from my sisters-in-law rubbed more salt into my wound. I thought about getting up and leaving right then, but my feet felt nailed to the patio floor. I was afraid if I left, they'd have more reason to mock me. See? So weak that no one even cares. Around 9 that night, the party began to wind down. People split off, some gathering by the outdoor fireplace, others crowding into the living room to watch the basketball game. I quietly cleared dirty dishes from the table to the sink. My mom had taught me since I was little, no matter how badly someone treats you, always be polite. Don't give them an excuse to look down on you. I stood at the sink, hands soaked in soap suds, my heart heavy. Each bowl and plate I touched seemed to weigh down my resentment even more. I could hear Alex laughing with his dad and a couple of old friends in the living room. He was still cheerful as if nothing had happened. No one remembered I was still scrubbing away in the kitchen. Maybe Ashley was right, maybe if I vanished, this party would be even more comfortable. A while later, Emma came in, holding a half-finished cocktail. She set it by the sink, glanced at me, and gave a polite smile. "Must be tiring for you. But just leave it, I'll clean up the rest tomorrow." I forced a smile back. "It's fine, I'll finish up and then head home." Emma didn't say anything else, just muttered okay, and walked out. The sound of her high heels faded into the soft music. I watched her figure disappear behind the door, feeling an emptiness that scared me. When I finished the pile of dishes, I took off my gloves, splashed some water on my face, and went to find Alex. He was leaning back on the sofa, holding a beer bottle, eyes fixed on the TV screen. I stood there for a few seconds, hoping he would turn around and call my name. But he didn't look back. Called softly, "Alex." He startled, looking at me as if I had just appeared out of nowhere. "Oh, you're done. If you're tired, just go rest in the room." His voice was light, casual, without a hint of guilt. I swallowed my reproach back down my throat. "I want to talk to you." Alex glanced at his friends, then motioned for me to go out to the backyard. We stood by the wooden fence, where the yellow garden light lit up half his face. I took a deep breath. "Did you think Ashley's comment this afternoon was funny?" He ran a hand through his hair, exhaled. "You're overreacting again. That's just how Ashley jokes. No one meant anything by it." My eyes stung. "You think they didn't mean anything? Did you hear how they laughed? If I really disappeared, maybe they'd throw a party to celebrate." Alex looked at me, his voice lowered. "Come on, don't say such harsh things. I know you're sensitive, but this is my family. They accept you, don't they? Don't take silly words to heart." I let out a laugh, one without any joy. "You call that acceptance? Have you ever stood up for me in front of them?" Alex averted his eyes, sounding irritated. "So what do you want me to do now? Yell at Ashley in front of everyone? Do you think that would make you feel better?" I looked at the man I had loved for 4 years. Now he was standing right in front of me, tall and warm like the first day we met, but the distance between us felt impossibly wide. I didn't cry. I just nodded slightly. "Go back to them. I'm leaving first." He flinched. "Come on, don't be childish. I'll take you home." I shook my head. "I can go by myself. Stay here. It's not like I matter anyway." After saying that, I turned and walked straight to the gate. I didn't want to hear any more empty words of comfort. My steps were heavy on the gravel path, the streetlights dim, the smell of barbecue still lingering in the air. A haunting smell, reminding me of a family I probably never really belonged to. I got back to our apartment close to 10 o'clock. I opened the door, turned off all the lights in the living room, then sank down on the sofa. The room was silent except for the ticking of the wall clock, each tick like a needle pricking my temples. I suddenly laughed to myself. All these years I believed that if I tried hard enough to be a good daughter-in-law, a good sister-in-law, a good wife, I would be loved. But tonight, one sentence like a knife had torn all those illusions apart. Maybe Ashley wasn't joking at all. Maybe she just spoke out loud what they really thought, that I was just a shadow, an invisible person wedging myself into their close-knit family. I leaned my head against the back of the couch, closed my eyes. For the first time I realized I needed to love myself first, instead of clinging to a place no one wanted to give me. But what would I do next? I didn't know yet either. I woke up the next morning with an empty feeling. The morning sunlight slipped through the curtains, casting blurry streaks of light on the ceiling. Normally at this hour, Alex would be making coffee, the kettle would be whistling in the kitchen, and I'd hear his footsteps moving softly around the apartment. But this morning there was nothing. I sat up, looking around the quiet apartment. Alex's jacket still hung on the hook. His shoes were neatly lined up by the door. He had come home last night about an hour after me. But we didn't say a word to each other. He went to the bedroom, showered, then lay down on the bed like a stranger. I turned my back to him, both of us silent. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water. For some reason my throat felt bitter. I opened the fridge, took out a yogurt and an apple, then brought them to the dining table. A simple breakfast I always prepared, but today it felt more like a meaningless ritual than a habit. I ate in silence, ears perked for any sound from the bedroom. Around 8 Alex came out. He was wearing a light blue shirt, jeans, his hair still damp. He glanced at me, seeming to debate whether to say something. "Are you going to work today?" he asked, his voice light as if nothing had happened last night. I didn't look up, still scooping the last spoonful of yogurt. "I took the day off." Alex nodded, quietly walked to the door. But just as his hand touched the doorknob, I spoke up. "Alex, have you ever thought that I've never once been truly accepted in your family?" He paused, turned his back to me, then looked back. His eyes had something strange in them, tired, helpless, and evasive. "They just need time. You know, my family isn't the type to open up easily. They didn't mean it. But they never really tried either, did they?" I stared straight at him, for the first time not looking away. "Do you know how hard I've tried? I helped in the kitchen at every party, always brought gifts. I kept quiet when they mocked me just to keep the peace. But I'm not a shadow. I'm not a silent doll for them to throw hurtful words at." Alex stood still for a long time. Then he exhaled, setting his bag down on the floor. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you felt that way. I just didn't want to create more conflict." I looked at him, feeling something inside me crack. Not out of anger, but disappointment. I had hoped he would stand by my side, protect me against the world. But it turned out he just wanted everything to be pleasant. For him, for his family. And what about me? I had endured long enough to keep things peaceful. Did anyone care if I was hurting? "I need time, Alex. Not to hate them, but to remember who I was before becoming a wife trying to please everyone." He nodded slightly. "I understand. Well, try harder." I didn't reply. I just got up, walked to the small home office. I opened my laptop, checked work emails, then absent-mindedly searched for a bus ticket back to Portland for the weekend. I needed a familiar place. I needed my mother. I needed a quiet afternoon at the old cafe near campus, where I was truly myself, confident, with a voice not belittled. I wasn't sure how long I would stay in Portland. I wasn't sure what would happen between Alex and me either. But one thing I was sure of. I couldn't keep living while forgetting my own worth, just to keep the peace with people who never cared to understand me. That afternoon, Ashley texted me. Just one line. "Don't take last night to heart." I was just kidding. I stared at the screen. Should I reply? Should I tell her that her joke had changed the way I saw this whole family? Put the phone down. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't want to explain anymore. Some things, if they can't see for themselves, then any explanation from me is pointless. I looked out the window, where birds circled in the gray Seattle sky. Everything was still the same except I was changing. And this time, I wouldn't ask anyone's permission to be myself. That weekend I got on a bus back to Portland. The bus drove past rows of green hills, through small towns with dark wooden rooftops. I sat by the window, headphones on but no music playing, just to keep the person next to me from starting a conversation. I needed a silent ride to calm the leftover noise inside me. I hadn't told Alex about this trip. The night before, he came home late, saw me packing a few clothes, and just stood at the door watching, then quietly turned away. I knew he understood, but maybe he also felt helpless facing my decision right now. We lived under the same roof, but lately it felt like we were in two different worlds. The bus stopped at Portland Station around 10 a.m. I pulled my suitcase outside, taking in a deep breath of the city's damp, cold air. I had so many memories here. Afternoons walking across the Broadway Bridge, nights wandering the old bookstore near campus, hours sitting with my mom at our favorite cafe, just talking about everyday life. I caught a taxi to my mom's house. As soon as I got out, I saw her standing on the porch, hands on her hips, eyes squinting in the sun. She looked thinner than when I last visited at Christmas, but her smile was still just as warm. "So my daughter finally remembers the way home, huh?" My mom said, half joking, but I could hear the worry. I ran to hug her tight, like a child waking up from a nightmare. The smell of her old sweater made me feel truly at peace for the first time in months. In the kitchen, Mom made me a cup of ginger tea, her hands quickly slicing an apple pie, the one she knew I'd loved since I was little. I looked around the small kitchen, everything still the same. The slightly crooked wall clock, the white painted wooden cupboard with chipped paint, the spice jars neatly arranged on the shelf. This kitchen had seen me cry, laugh, and grow up. "Did you fight with Alex?" Mom asked, her eyes on the boiling pot. I shook my head lightly. "We didn't fight. I'm tired. I want to stay here for a while." Mom set the tea in front of me, sat down opposite, silent for a moment before saying, "If a place makes you feel tired, then leave. Leave and come back if you want. What matters most is that you stay whole, you hear me?" I lowered my head, eyes stinging. I wished Alex could hear that from my mom. That a woman, no matter how strong, can't live peacefully in a family that looks down on her. After lunch, I went up to my old room. The window faced the maple trees, now in season to change leaves. On the desk were still the notebooks I left half-filled during college, a few photos with friends. I picked one up, me grinning with my classmates at graduation. My eyes back then were confident, my smile genuine, not the forced one I wore now. I lay down on the bed, quietly asking myself, how long has it been since I forgot I was once that girl? That night, I went with Mom to the small cafe near home. The owner still recognized me, still made me a hot mocha without asking. Mom and I sat by the window, watching people pass under the strings of yellow lights along the street. "What are you planning to do next?" Mom asked, stirring her coffee while looking at me. I sighed. "I don't know yet, Mom. I still love Alex, but I'm not sure I have the strength to endure another one of those family parties." Mom nodded. "Love whoever you want, but don't love so much that you forget who you are. They might not love you, but you have to love yourself first." Her words peeled away layers of dust that had covered my heart for years. I knew, whether I went back to Seattle, whether I stayed with Alex or not, the one thing I needed to be sure of was that I would live true to my own worth. Picked up my phone. A new message from Alex. "Are you okay? I don't want to lose you." I typed a reply, then deleted it. I knew Alex loved me, but I also knew that love wasn't strong enough to change everything in his family. At least not now. I looked at Mom, at the warm little cafe, at the calm Portland night outside, and I promised myself, I would go back to Seattle, but I would no longer be the silent, forced smile version of myself at those family gatherings. I stayed in Portland for 3 more days. 3 short days, but enough to remind me how I used to live before forcing myself to be the perfect daughter-in-law for the Andersons. Mom didn't ask much. She just cooked my favorite dishes, took me to the flower market down the street to buy lavender, and the two of us sat arranging flowers on the porch until dusk. At night, I read my old books, sometimes laughing to myself when I found lines I had once underlined in red ink. Every morning I made coffee for Mom, listened to the wind blowing through the kitchen window, watched maple leaves fall in the yard. Everything was so quiet that I felt light again. No one mentioned the in-laws. No one gave a half-smirk and said, "She's just an outsider anyway." I knew I couldn't stay forever. I had to go back to Seattle because that was the life I had chosen. But this time I would return with a different heart. On the 3rd afternoon I pulled my suitcase to the bus station. Mom saw me off, her hand still warm like the day she welcomed me back. She brushed my hair back and softly said, "I won't tell you what to do. Just remember, if there's ever no place left for you to stand, you can always come back here." I hugged her tight, breathing in her ginger tea scent. Deep down, I knew this was the one place I never had to prove my worth. The bus arrived in Seattle at dusk. I grabbed a taxi back to the apartment. The hallway light was still the same dull yellow as always, but my steps were different. I wheeled my suitcase inside, unlocked the door. Alex was sitting on the sofa, the living room lit by a single dim lamp. He stood up as soon as he saw me but didn't say anything. I took off my shoes, hung up my coat, then sat down across from him. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally he spoke softly. "I'm sorry." His voice was hoarse, his eyes dark with circles, like he hadn't slept in days. I looked at him, not angry anymore, just tired. "I talked to Ashley. I told her she had to apologize to you. Talk to Mom too. I know I left you alone through all of that. I'm sorry, I really am." I didn't interrupt him. I let him say everything he should have said long ago. Then I gently nodded. "I don't need you to apologize for anyone else. I just need you to stand by me when I'm being disrespected." Alex lowered his head, his voice trembling. "I was wrong. I didn't know how much you were enduring. I thought if you stayed quiet, everything would be fine. But I was wrong. I left you alone for too long." I looked at him for a long time. All these years I still loved this face. I loved his gentle smile, loved the way he touched my shoulder crossing busy streets. I still loved him. But I loved myself too. I knew if I didn't change, it would all happen again. "Alex, I still want to be with you. But not the way it was before. I won't go to family parties if I don't want to. I won't keep quiet so everyone thinks I'm a good wife, while they talk behind my back. I won't fake smile at cruel jokes. If I'm not respected, I'll get up and leave the table, no matter who's uncomfortable." Alex looked up, his eyes wet but clearer than ever. He nodded without hesitation. "Promise. I won't leave you alone anymore. If you don't want it, I won't push. I just want you to feel safe, loved. Like you were before you came into my family." I smiled, my first genuine smile after weeks of gloom. I knew promises needed time to prove themselves. I also knew people don't change overnight from one conversation. But at least Alex was listening. And I had said what I wanted, without fear of upsetting anyone. That night we sat next to each other on the sofa, no TV, no music, just the sound of cars outside. I rested my head on his shoulder, a familiar feeling but somehow new. I knew that tomorrow, when I faced Ashley or my mother-in-law again, I wouldn't be the timid daughter-in-law anymore. I would keep for myself the respect I deserved. Before going to sleep, I checked my phone and saw a message from Ashley. "I'm sorry. I was really out of line. You can hate me, but I hope you'll give me a chance to make it right." I texted back briefly. "I don't hate you. But I won't stay silent anymore." After sending it, I put my phone down and pulled the blanket closer around me. Alex turned over and kissed my forehead, his hand tightly holding mine. I closed my eyes, feeling an unfamiliar sense of peace inside. I don't know what the future holds. I only know this time I chose myself. And that's what matters most. 2 weeks after coming back from Portland, I got an invitation to dinner from my mother-in-law. Patricia called Alex first, her voice very gentle. "I want the whole family together. It's been a while since we've had a proper meal." Alex handed me the phone, waiting for my nod. I looked at him, at his slightly tense face. Then I nodded. I knew this time I wasn't going to please anyone. I was going to show them that I'm no longer someone to be underestimated. Saturday evening I wore a dark blue knit dress, a color I like, not too flashy but enough to make me feel confident. Alex held my hand as we walked to the car, his grip tighter than usual. He had kept his promise these past 2 weeks. Every night he came home, he took time to talk with me, ask if I was okay, and never once brought up family as pressure. My in-laws' house looked the same as the last time. Neatly trimmed lawn, warm yellow lights spilling over the red brick walls. I stepped through the door, the familiar smell hit me. Honey-glazed roast, garlic butter bread, and fresh salad. My mother-in-law greeted me with a slightly stiff smile. "Feeling better?" I nodded slightly. "I'm fine, thank you, Mom." Ashley was at the kitchen counter, and when she saw me, she hurried over. She looked a bit awkward. "Can you talk to me privately for a second?" Everyone in the living room paused their conversation. Alex glanced at me, his eyes asking, "You okay?" He nodded. I wanted to hear it because I knew I wouldn't stay silent anymore. Ashley led me to a corner of the backyard. The yellow porch light shone on her shiny blonde hair. The early spring night breeze was a bit chilly. Ashley nervously started. That day, I really didn't think what I said would hurt you like that. Sorry. I really am. I looked her straight in the eyes. For the first time, I didn't bow my head or smile to brush it off. Ashley, you can joke with anyone you want, but don't ever joke like that with me again. I'm not invisible in this family. She bit her lip and nodded repeatedly. I know. I was wrong. I talked to Mom and Emma. I promise it won't happen again. I nodded, my voice calm but firm. I don't need a promise. I need respect. If it happens again, I'll leave the dinner table immediately. No matter who's there. Ashley's eyes widened. Maybe she didn't expect me to speak so directly. But I didn't care. I was done letting them casually insult me and call it family fun. We returned to the dining room just as my mother-in-law was setting out the food. My father-in-law stood at the head of the table, raising a glass of red wine. All right, everyone, tonight the family's all here. Let's leave the past behind and enjoy a nice dinner. Everyone clinked glasses. Only Alex and I exchanged a silent look. I knew this meal wasn't a test to see how good a daughter-in-law I was anymore. It was a meal where I allowed myself to be comfortable. Throughout dinner, Ashley kept trying to chat with me, asking about work, asking if I wanted to try her new sauce recipe. I replied politely, not cold but not overly friendly either. I didn't feel like I had to smile a lot to please anyone. My mother-in-law occasionally nodded, telling me to eat more of this or that. I didn't know if she really changed her opinion about me, but that didn't matter much anymore. A little later, Emma, the eldest sister, poured me more orange juice and smiled. Ashley told me everything. I want to apologize for her too. Those careless jokes that hurt you were our fault. I smiled, looking Emma straight in the eyes. Thank you for saying that. I hope next time all jokes stop before someone gets hurt. The whole table fell silent for a few seconds. I knew they might still think I was making a big deal, but I didn't care. Sometimes a boundary has to be set, even if it bothers people. Dinner ended with warm apple pie. Alex placed his hand on my back, his eyes shining with pride. I knew he was thinking, finally, you're standing up tall in front of them. Leaving my in-laws' house, I stepped into the front yard and looked up at the Seattle sky, already dotted with tiny stars. Alex wrapped his arms around me from behind and whispered, "I'm proud of you." I turned around, resting my forehead on his chest. I'm not afraid anymore. I'll always hold my ground, even if they don't like it. He chuckled softly. Then let me stand by you. This time and always. I closed my eyes, soaking in his familiar warmth. I knew there would be more dinners, more family gatherings. They wouldn't always go smoothly. But at least I had found my voice again. And I knew I'd never let anyone silence it again. It's been 3 months since that evening when I returned to the Andersons' dinner table as someone who no longer accepted being looked down on. 3 months isn't long, but it's enough for me to see things around me changing. Slowly but genuinely. Ashley still jokes around sometimes, but I've noticed she knows when to stop before crossing the line. Emma, the eldest sister, has started including me in more conversations, sometimes asking for my advice on ideas for her new bakery. My mother-in-law is still strict, still picky about small things, but at least she's stopped making snide remarks about how I should be this or that like before. As for Alex, he has kept his word. He no longer leaves me alone to face awkward situations. He no longer forces a polite smile to please everyone, only to let me get hurt. Whenever there's a look or a comment that touches my dignity, Alex is the first to cut it off, gently but clear enough for everyone to understand. I am no longer an outsider. And me, I still join family dinners, but I'm no longer afraid. If I'm tired, I excuse myself and leave early. If I don't feel like it, I say up front that I won't come. I've learned to save my smile for the right people, at the right moments. I've learned to say no to nosy questions about children, work, income, things I used to feel obligated to answer just to play the role of the good wife, good daughter-in-law. One time Ashley asked me, "Aren't you afraid people will say you're stuck up?" I just smiled. "I'm not afraid. Because they don't live my life." Ashley laughed too, then said, "I wish I could be like you." I looked at her and suddenly realized, to be who I am now, I had to trade countless silent tears. I don't regret it, but I'll never go back to who I was. My marriage with Alex didn't magically turn into a fairy tale after a few reconciliatory dinners. We still argue sometimes. I still have moments of doubt and exhaustion. But every time I remind myself, I am with him not to turn myself into a quiet shadow, but to live fully as who I truly am, strong or vulnerable. And Alex understands that better than anyone. One evening, he and I sat on the balcony of our small apartment, holding cups of tea, watching the city at night. The streetlights twinkled below, a cool breeze playing with my hair. Alex held my hand and whispered, "Are you okay?" I leaned my head on his shoulder, smiling. "Yes, I'm okay. And I'm proud of myself." That wasn't just an answer to him, but a promise to myself. I once disappeared in indifferent glances. But from now on, I won't let myself disappear again. I'm back, clear, strong, and loving myself more than anyone else ever could. This story reminds us that in any relationship, especially marriage and family, self-worth must come first. No matter how much we love someone, we should never sacrifice our self-respect for half-hearted acceptance. The right person will stand by us and protect us from meaningless, hurtful words. And most importantly, only when we dare to speak up can we truly keep our own peace and happiness. What do you think about her journey in this story? Have you ever been in a similar situation? Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to follow the channel to read more honest and emotional family stories.